Right in the middle of my 15th anniversary party, my sister stood up, grabbed the microphone, and said she had a special surprise for the room. She smiled at me across 47 people. She smiled at my husband. She pressed play on a video she had loaded onto the venue's big screen, a video she said proved my husband had been cheating on me for 2 years. The room went completely silent. My mother gasped, my mother-in-law grabbed her chest, my husband's face turned white. And my sister stood there with that smile still on her face, like she had just handed me a gift. What she did not know, what she had completely forgotten, was that 3 days earlier, she had edited that video in the venue's back office. And the venue's security camera had recorded every second of it. I had the footage on my phone, right there in my evening bag. She thought she was ending my marriage that night. She had no idea she was ending herself. To understand what happened that night, you need to know one thing about my sister Renee: she had never once been happy about my marriage. My name is Claire, I am 43 years old. Daniel and I met in our late 20s. We got married 3 years after we met, small ceremony, 40 guests. Renee was my maid of honor, and she gave a toast at the reception that was so subtly mean that only I understood it was mean. She talked about how I had always been the determined one in the family, the one who always got what she wanted no matter what, and she looked at Daniel when she said it like she was warning him about me. I told myself it was nerves. I told myself Renee was just awkward with emotions. I was wrong. For the first several years of my marriage, Renee's behavior was manageable. She would say small things, backhanded compliments. She would tell people I had changed since getting married, like marriage had corrupted me somehow. She would make comments about Daniel, always worded carefully enough that I could not quite call her out on them. Things like, he seems very private, or you two always seem so serious, or I just want to make sure you're happy, Claire, really happy. It wasn't any single thing, it was the accumulation of it. But Daniel and I were solid. We had built a good life. We bought a house in a suburb of Columbus called Worthington. We had 2 kids, a son named Marcus, who is now 13, and a daughter named Lily, who is 10. Daniel had moved up at his firm. I had started my own small project management consultancy. We were not wealthy, but we were stable and genuinely content. And Renee's life had gone a different direction. She had divorced her husband, Greg, after 7 years. I was there for her during that. I was there for every phone call, every crying session, every legal question. I helped her move into her apartment. I spent weekends helping her get back on her feet. I didn't understand any of this yet. I was still 6 weeks away from the moment that would make it all make sense. And somehow, somewhere in all of that, I think she decided that my happiness was an insult to her pain. I don't say that to be cruel. I say it because it's the only way I have ever been able to explain what she eventually did. When Daniel and I decided to have a 15th anniversary party, it was my mother who pushed hardest for it. She wanted something meaningful. She said 15 years was real, not the glamour of 10, not the milestone of 25, but 15 was the year you knew something was built to last. We agreed. We booked a venue called the Greystone Hall in Worthington, a converted carriage house turned event space. 47 guests, catered dinner, a string quartet for the first hour, a DJ after dinner, simple, warm hours. I asked Renee to help me plan it. I want to say that clearly. I invited her in. I gave her access to the venue, the vendor contact list, the decor timeline. I thought including her was the right thing to do. I thought maybe it would help. She said she was honored. That word now makes my stomach turn. The first sign that something was wrong came 6 weeks before the party. Daniel mentioned, almost in passing, that he had run into Renee at a coffee shop near his office. He was surprised to see her because she lived across town. She told him she had a client near there. He said she seemed perfectly friendly. He didn't think anything of it. I didn't either. My friend Joanna called me. A contact of hers had spotted Renee at a restaurant near Daniel's office twice, filming toward the door with her phone. That was enough for me. I didn't know what that meant yet. But I wrote it down. 10 days before the party, the venue contact, a woman named Sandra, called me about final logistics, tablecloth colors, microphone placement, the projector setup for the slideshow we had planned. I had put together a 15-minute photo slideshow, our wedding photos, the kids when they were born, trips we had taken, nothing elaborate, just our life compressed into images and a few songs. Sandra mentioned, almost as an aside, that Renee had come in 3 days ago to review the slideshow setup. She said Renee wanted to make sure the projector quality was good because she had something she wanted to add as a surprise segment for me. My chest went cold. I asked Sandra if Renee had used any of the venue's equipment or computers while she was there. Sandra said yes, the back office computer, to preview file formats. She said she'd been there for about an hour. I thanked Sandra and hung up. And then I sat in my car in my own driveway for 10 minutes, completely still. I called Daniel. She built something on that computer, I said. She's going to put something in the slideshow. I want to be clear about what happened next, because this is the part that mattered most. Daniel and I did not panic. We did not confront Renee. We did not call my mother and cause a scene. We did not tip our hand in any direction. We made one call. We called the venue. I told Sandra I needed to request something unusual. I told her I had reason to believe someone might be accessing the venue's equipment without proper authorization, and I needed to know whether the back office had a security camera. Sandra said yes, the whole venue was covered, including the back office, as part of their standard security system installed 2 years ago after a vendor equipment theft. I asked if she could pull the footage from the day Renee had visited. Sandra said she'd have to check with her manager, but given that I was the client and paying for the event, she didn't see why it would be a problem. She called me back the next morning. She said the footage was available. She said I was welcome to come view it. Daniel and I drove to the venue that same afternoon. We sat in Sandra's office and watched the back office camera footage on her laptop. Renee came in at 2:17 in the afternoon. She had a USB drive. She plugged it into the back office computer. She opened a video editing program, a free one, the kind anyone can download. She had a video file on the USB. She opened it. We could not see the screen clearly from the camera angle, but we could see her working, clicking, dragging, trimming, splicing. She was building something out of existing footage. Then she exported the file back to her USB. She was there for 54 minutes. Before she left, she opened the venue's event folder on the desktop, which Sandra had unfortunately left accessible, and she replaced one of the slideshow files with her own. She didn't hide it. She trusted that no one would check. She trusted that everything would play out exactly as she had planned at the party. She had swapped my slideshow segment with her edited video. Sandra, when we showed her what Renee had done, was horrified. She immediately restored my original file and changed the desktop password. She also gave me a copy of the full security footage on a USB drive. I held that USB drive in both hands for a moment before I put it in my purse. 54 minutes of Renee building whatever lie she planned to show 47 people at my anniversary party. We didn't know yet exactly what was on the video she had created, but we knew enough. We spent the next 4 days quietly and carefully. I did not call Renee. I texted her normally, party logistics, seating chart questions, the color of the ribbon on the favor bags. I acted like everything was completely fine. She texted back warmly, enthusiastically even. She sent heart emojis. She said she was so excited for the night. I showed Daniel one of her texts and he just shook his head. We met with a family attorney named Philip, someone I'd used for a minor business contract 2 years earlier. He reviewed the security footage. He told us the footage was admissible in any civil proceeding. He told us that if the video Renee had created contained fabricated or misrepresented content designed to cause harm to a marriage or reputation, we were looking at potential defamation. He told us to document everything we already had. I made 2 copies of the security footage USB, one for Philip, one kept at home separate from my purse. I also sent the original USB contents to my own email, with a timestamp. The night before the party, Daniel and I sat on the back porch after the kids were in bed. It was a warm September evening. The neighborhood was quiet. He held my hand and we didn't say very much. We had been married 15 years. We had gone through hard things together before. This was different in kind, but not in the way it felt to face it together, calm, clear-eyed. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm ready," I said. The morning of the party, Renee called me to ask what she should wear. She spent 8 minutes on the phone talking about dress options. She was cheerful. She laughed at her own jokes. She asked if Marcus and Lily were excited. I told her the kids were looking forward to it. I told her I was looking forward to having everyone together. She said, "Me too. Tonight is going to be memorable, I promise." I said, "I know it will be." I hung up. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror for a moment. Then I finished getting ready. The Greystone Hall was beautiful that night. Sandra and her team had done everything exactly as planned. Round tables with ivory linens and small centerpieces of ivory and deep burgundy roses, string lights overhead. The string quartet was set up in the corner, 4 musicians playing softly as guests arrived. Daniel and I stood near the entrance and greeted everyone, his parents, my parents, friends from work, from the neighborhood, from different chapters of our lives. Joanna came with her husband and hugged me for a long time without saying anything extra. She knew, I had told her enough the night before. Renee arrived 40 minutes into cocktail hour. She was dressed in deep green, a color that looked striking on her, and she knew it. She hugged me, she kissed Daniel on the cheek, she called the venue gorgeous and said she was so proud of us. I watched her eyes just briefly. She glanced at the projection screen at the front of the room just once, then she looked away. She knew exactly what she had put in that slideshow file. Or rather, she thought she knew. Dinner was served at 7, the food was excellent, the conversation was warm. Daniel gave a small speech before the main course, nothing long, just a few minutes about what 15 years had taught him, what he hoped for, how grateful he was. He looked at me the whole time he spoke. People clapped. My mother dabbed her eyes. Renee raised her glass and smiled. After the main course, it was time for the slideshow. Sandra dimmed the lights, the projector screen lit up, and my slideshow, my original, untouched slideshow, began to play. I watched Renee's face. For the first 30 seconds, she was smiling, nodding along. Then a photograph appeared that she was not expecting. Our wedding day, me and Daniel at the altar, the very first image in my original file. Her smile stayed in place, but something shifted in her eyes, confusion. The slideshow continued, all 15 minutes, our life exactly as I had built it, nothing added, nothing changed. When it ended and the lights came up, Renee's expression was flat. She was thinking, recalculating. I watched her pick up her phone under the table. She typed something quickly. I imagined she was texting someone, perhaps whoever the younger woman at the restaurant had been, perhaps a co-conspirator, perhaps just herself in panic. She set the phone down. She picked up her wine glass. She put it down without drinking. The DJ began to set up. People were moving around, getting up from tables, refilling glasses at the bar. It was the natural loosening of the room between dinner and dancing. And that is when Renee stood up. She walked to the DJ's equipment and picked up the handheld microphone. She tapped it once. The room quieted. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I had prepared a little surprise for Claire and Daniel that I think everyone will want to see." She looked at me and smiled. I wanted to add something to the evening, something honest, because I love my sister and I think she deserves the truth. Several people shifted in their seats. My mother looked uncertain. Daniel's hand found mine under the table. Renee reached into her bag and produced a small laptop. She walked it to Sandra, who was standing near the AV equipment, and she said something quietly to Sandra and held out a USB drive. Sandra looked at me. I gave the smallest, slowest nod. Sandra took the USB, she plugged it in. The projection screen lit up again. Renee's video began to play. It was about 4 minutes long. It was footage, real footage, security camera or phone camera footage pulled from somewhere, of a man and a woman standing very close together outside what appeared to be a restaurant, talking, laughing. At one point the woman touched the man's arm. The man looked like Daniel. I say looked like because I knew immediately it was not Daniel. The posture was close but not his. The jacket was similar to one Daniel owned but not the same cut. The angle of the camera was carefully chosen to obscure the full face. Renee had narrated the video in a voiceover she had recorded herself. She described it as footage of my husband in a relationship with another woman for the past 18 months. She named a woman, she gave a date range, she described what she called a pattern of deception. The room had gone completely silent. My mother's hand was over her mouth. Daniel's mother had grabbed his father's arm. I heard someone at a back table say, "Oh my God," very quietly. Renee stood near the screen with her arms crossed, not triumphant exactly, more like someone who has just filed a report and is waiting for the authorities to arrive. "I'm sorry, Claire," she said into the microphone, turning to look at me. "I know this is hard, but you deserve to know." The room looked at me. I stood up. I had rehearsed nothing. I had planned only one thing, the moment, not the words. I trusted myself to find the words. I reached into my evening bag and I took out my phone. I had already loaded the venue's security footage. I walked to Sandra. I held out my phone and asked her quietly to connect it to the projector. Sandra connected it. I picked up the microphone that Renee had set on the table. "Thank you, Renee," I said. "I want to show everyone something too." The projection screen changed. The back office security footage began to play. The timestamp in the corner read 10 days earlier. The room appeared on screen, the small back office of the Greystone Hall. Unmistakably this venue, with its stone walls and the same wooden desk that Sandra worked at every day. And there was Renee, sitting at the computer, plugging in her USB, opening a video editing program, working for 54 minutes. Building the video she had just shown the room. I let it play for about 90 seconds, enough for the room to understand clearly what they were seeing, enough for the timestamp to register, enough for the venue to be recognizable, enough for Renee's face to be unmistakable on screen. Then I paused it. "This footage is from the security cameras here at this venue," I said. 10 days ago, my sister came here under the guise of helping with party logistics. She used the back office computer to edit together a video using footage she had gathered, footage designed to look like my husband with another woman. She then replaced a file in my anniversary slideshow with her fabricated video. The room was absolutely still. The man in her video is not Daniel. I've already confirmed that with the people who appear in the actual original footage, which Renee obtained and altered without anyone's knowledge or consent. My attorney has copies of the security footage. Everything has been documented. I set the microphone down on the nearest table. I looked at Renee. She had not moved. She was standing exactly where she had been, arms no longer crossed, hands at her sides. Her face had gone through several expressions in rapid succession: disbelief, calculation, something that might have been shame, and had landed on a kind of blankness. The room looked at her. Nobody said anything for what felt like a very long time. My mother spoke first. She said, "Renee." Just that word, just her name, in a voice I had never heard my mother use before, not angry, not heartbroken, something flatter than either of those, something that sounded like recognition arriving late. Renee's chin trembled. She looked at my mother, she looked at me. "Claire," she started. "Don't," I said. Not loudly, not with tears, I just said it the way you close a door. Renee's mouth closed. Daniel stood up beside me. He said nothing. He didn't need to. He put his hand on my back and that was enough. His mother, Margaret, got up from her table. She walked to us, walked to me, and she put her hands on either side of my face and said, "I'm so sorry this happened at your party, sweetheart." And then she hugged me, really held me for a long moment. That was what broke something open in me, not Renee's exposure, not the room's reaction, Margaret's arms. I don't know exactly who helped Renee gather her bag and leave. I was told later that one of my cousins, a younger one named Brett who had no context for any of this, awkwardly offered to walk her out, and she accepted. My mother did not follow her daughter out the door. She sat down at her table and she put her hands flat on the tablecloth and she stared at them. I watched her from across the room. She looked like a woman doing a calculation she should have done years ago. I let her sit. I went to the bar and ordered a glass of wine, and I stood there for a moment and breathed. Joanna appeared beside me. She didn't say anything smart or dramatic. She just stood there with me, ordered herself a glass of something, and tilted it toward mine. "Happy anniversary," she said. I almost laughed, I almost cried. I did neither. I just clinked my glass to hers and took a sip. The DJ, who I will be grateful to for the rest of my life, waited about 8 minutes and then quietly started playing music. Something mellow at first, then something with a little more rhythm. People began to talk again, quietly, carefully, then with more normalcy. It was Daniel who got the dancing started. He came to find me at the bar, held out his hand and said, "Dance with me." We walked to the dance floor. The DJ read the room perfectly and put on a slow song, one of those mid-tempo love songs that doesn't demand anything of you, just lets you move together. Daniel pulled me close. "You okay?" he said into my ear. "I think so," I said. "She's been trying to take this apart for 15 years. "I know." "She couldn't," he said. "She can't." I pressed my cheek against his and we swayed. In the middle of the Greystone Hall, with 46 people around us who had just witnessed something I would never fully choose to explain to each of them, we danced. Other couples joined us, the floor filled, the evening continued. It was exactly as strange and exactly as ours as I imagine it had to be. I did not speak to Renee again that night. She did not attempt to return to the venue. Brett texted me the next morning to say he had walked her to her car and she had driven away without much more than a few words. He said she had looked more stunned than anything else. He asked if I was okay. I told him I was. My mother called me the next morning at 9. She said, "I want to come see you today. Can I come see you today?" I told her yes. She arrived an hour later. She sat in my kitchen. I made coffee. We sat across from each other and she looked at me the way mothers look at you when they know they missed something and they are trying to hold the weight of it honestly. She said, "I knew she was jealous. I didn't know it had become this." I said, "I know you didn't, Mom. I should have." "You didn't see it clearly," I said. "Neither did I for a long time." We both gave her the benefit of the doubt. My mother looked at her coffee cup. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Right now I'm going to finish my coffee," I said, "and I'm going to let my attorney handle the documentation, and I'm going to live my life." She nodded. She didn't push for more. That was what I needed from her in that moment, just to be there, not to fix, not to advocate for Renee or for me, just to sit in the same room with me and not pretend that what happened hadn't happened. She stayed for 2 hours. We talked about the kids mostly, about Thanksgiving, whether we'd do it at my house or hers, about ordinary things that felt like stitches being placed in something torn. When she left, she hugged me longer than usual. I didn't stop her. Renee sent me a text message 4 days after the party. It said, "I know I can't explain this in a way that makes sense. I know what I did was wrong. I'm getting help. I don't expect forgiveness." I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone face down on my desk and went back to the project proposal I'd been drafting. I didn't respond that day or the next, or the one after that. I'm not interested in punishing her. I'm also not interested in reassuring her that everything is fine when it isn't and may never fully be. She will work through whatever she needs to work through, or she won't. That is her life to navigate. I have my own. What Renee did came from somewhere real, some wound, some deficit, some long-swallowed resentment that curdled into something much uglier than she probably ever intended. I understand that. I can understand something and still choose to step back from it. I can see a person clearly and still decide that clarity is reason enough for distance. That is not cruelty. That is just knowing where you end and someone else begins. A few weeks later, Daniel and I got away for a weekend, just the 2 of us. No phones, no family. On the second night, I sat outside in the dark and I thought about 15 years of building something real. I thought, she built a lie in 54 minutes. We built this in 5,475 days. There was never a contest. I thought about the party. I thought about Renee's face when the security footage appeared on that screen. I thought about Margaret's hands on my face. I thought about Joanna clinking her glass to mine. I thought about the DJ reading the room. I thought about Daniel pulling me to the dance floor. I thought about what it means to build something real over 15 years, not perfect real, the kind of thing that has been tested by ordinary life and extraordinary betrayal both and is still standing. You were supposed to protect me from humiliation, Renee. That was the whole job of a sister, at minimum. Instead, you planned it. You came to my party in your beautiful green dress, and you tried to dismantle the best thing in my life with a fabricated video that took you almost an hour to build. And it still wasn't enough. Because what you never understood, what you perhaps still don't, is that I was never fragile enough to be destroyed by a lie if the truth was strong enough to stand beside it. I am not a woman who was rescued that night. I didn't need rescuing. I walked into that party knowing what was coming, and I let it come, and when it arrived I answered it. That's all. There was no cavalry, there was no miracle. There was just 15 years of a real life and a security camera and a USB drive and 47 people who got to see exactly what my sister was willing to do. Some of those people have texted me since. Several were appalled and warm and said exactly what you'd expect people to say. A few said nothing at all, which I understand too. Sometimes you witness something that's not yours to comment on. My kids don't know the details. They know that Aunt Renee did something that hurt Mom and Dad and that we're taking some time away from her. Marcus, who is 13 and sharp as a tack, looked at me for a long moment when I said that and said, "Is she okay?" I told him she would be. I hope that's true. Lily asked if Aunt Renee was going to miss Thanksgiving. I told her probably yes this year. She thought about it, then she said, "Can we make extra stuffing then? She always says she's watching her carbs and then eats all the stuffing anyway." And that made me laugh, really laugh, for the first time in what felt like weeks. I did not forgive Renee the night of the party. I did not forgive her the morning after, or the week after, or in the weeks that followed. What I did do, somewhere between the dance floor and the days that followed, was put down something I had been carrying without realizing it. I put it down. And I kept walking. For the first time in a very long time, my life did not need anyone else's permission to continue. That is the only anniversary gift I needed.